evening, everyone. It's time again for Local Foods College. This is the sixth session in our 2014 series. And we're glad to welcome back Kathy Zeman, who presented last year. Kathy is the Executive Director of the Minnesota Farmers Market Association. She's also associated with the Simple Harvest Farm Organics. And she works part-time from her farm. Maybe she can explain what part-time on the farm is, how that calculates. So, Kathy, we're really happy to have you with us, and I'll turn it over to you. Let me.
All right, thank you, Linda.
I want to invite everyone who has a question to just go ahead and type it into that chat bar, and we will pause from time to time to take a look at your questions.
Okay, well, it's 6:01 on my computer screen, so I think we'll start. I am Kathy Zeman. I'm the operations manager for Minnesota Farmers Market Association, and I work part-time for MFMA from my farm. I started with MFMA in September of 2012, and specifically to actually work on food sampling at farmers markets and to look at legislation, statutes, and rules that affect how we go ahead building a really viable and vibrant, local food shed. So I also I farm here full time on my farm with my brother Dominic. That's Nick and I on the front steps of our hen house that is older than the state of Minnesota. And when I bought this farm in 2006, I would have tore down that lovely old building, but it actually makes us money, even though we do have to pitch it out by hand. So that's our little shot there of our free-range hens. They go in at night, and then we shut the doors so we protect them from the predators. Tonight, so first of all, Minnesota Farmers Market Association, many of you are members. I'm glad to see that. It is a nonprofit, so MFMA is a 501c6. That is, it allows us to do both public policy and non-public policy. So we can influence public policy legally, and that's what we actually did a lot of this year. We're membership-based. We're open to both vendors and farmers markets, and our entire goal is just to support the growth and development of farmers markets across the state of Minnesota. So what do? MFMA does education. We have a fall and spring all-day conferences. It's always in the St. Cloud area. Lake Park, which is really a suburb of St. Cloud. Our spring conference is coming up on Thursday, March 20th. It's at the American Legion. We'll soon have details on the website in case you're interested in attending. We do provide services to our members. We got into the insurance business mainly because the League of Minnesota Cities informed most of the cities and local government units that if you're going to have an activity on public land and vendors were going to sell something, or you had singers or dancers or whatever, that they needed to have insurance. And if you're a farmer, you can add product and general liability insurance to your farm policy for not too much money. And if you're a homeowner, you can add it, and it's a little bit of money. But if you are a renter, it's really hard to get product and general liability insurance. And so MFMA worked with Stearns Insurance out of St. Cloud to package together this big umbrella insurance program. And now vendors and farmers markets can buy a very basic product liability and general liability policy from MFMA. And it's helped out hundreds every year. We have a website, and we offer web pages to members. It's a very simple, fairly low-functioning web page, but it'll be a nice placeholder for either a farmer's market or a vendor in order to get people there to find out what your hours are, your products are, and who to contact. You do write grants and receive grants to offer programs. Right now we've got two grants. One is to encourage food sampling at farmers markets, and the other one is to certify farmers markets and vendors so that we can ensure that people have the training to do a good work at farmers markets and make a profit and follow the rules and the regulations. And then we do public policy efforts. And this year our food sampling bill, which we'll talk about in a wee bit, was our major emphasis. So when we talk about food safety at farmers markets, why is it important? Let me back up here. I should have also said that 5 years ago I helped start Riverwalk Market there in Northfield. So I'm one of those people that started a relatively new farmers market. And so I wear many hats, which has helped me quite a bit in doing this, our public policy work this year. So food safety at farmers markets, why is it important? And this is the point that we always make with our vendors, that the food safety is important because the people we're keeping safe are our family, it's our friends, it's our customers. So the person that gets sick from something that we observed at a farmer's market is someone that we are going to know and love. And so it's very important on the human side that we really pay attention to food safety. And it's a good business decision. I never, ever, ever want to file a product liability claim. And I'm guessing that most of our farmers markets or vendors don't want to either. So I think we could look at food safety from two basic categories. There's food sold by vendors, and that starts at the farm and in the kitchen, depending on what kind of a vendor you are. And then we'll talk about food sampling by vendors and by outside groups at farmers markets at the end. So when food is sold by vendors, it starts at your farm. Michelle Sherman from the University of Minnesota has done a phenomenal job in Minnesota offering GAPs, good ag practices, teaching all of us how to start keeping our produce clean on the farm. They've got a Facebook page, they have a YouTube channel, they have a Google Plus page, and they've got their own web page. That last one, the UMN GAPS web at the safety.cfans@umn.edu, that's where Michelle is going to list many of the classes that she's offering around the state. They do have an online GAPS course that is offered monthly. And GAPS, this would be for farmers. So if you're a market manager out there, this would be something to encourage your vendors to attend. That online GAPS course used to be free because it was funded by a grant, but now you do pay for it. And they're also going to have on-farm workshops, probably in the month of June, to look at the GAPS practices that farmers should be doing. One in the Northeast, one in the Southeast, and more if they can do it. But again, check out any of Michelle's pages and you'll find out more information there. I think this is how simple Michelle has made things for those of us who have produce. Mary, you're saying that we're losing. Can you still hear me okay? Or should I speak up a wee bit?
Some people
So
are
there's
asking
two basic categories.
I think if you speak more slowly, Kathy, those who are hearing an echo, it'll just be a little less troublesome.
Okay, so I will try to slow down. Thinking that will be hard for me. I want you to know that. One of the easiest things that Michelle Sherman taught us is that for $20, any farmer can buy this very simple hand washing stand. And that's the first place you start with food safety on the farm. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. It's got to be gravity fed. So if you notice the number 1 there on the blue thermos, that spout is going to be a turn spout. It's going to be a turn spout. It could also be a flip-up spout that allows the water to flow over your hands while you're washing. If it was one of those you push down, that obviously doesn't work because then you have one hand pushing down and then you're not washing with both hands together, creating that friction. So food safety at the farm starts with this very easy, under $20 hand washing stand. And there's more. Now if we flip to the kitchen side, Suzanne Dreesen has done a phenomenal job putting together some really cool, fun things about food safety in the kitchen. And you can go out to the website there at the UMN site. And actually, if you would just Google food safety at University of Minnesota Extension, you can jump to there also. She's got quick tips on preserving and preparing food. They have little mini modules that talk high level. Here's how you do things. I like this one. This is actually a video, and it talks about how the microbes grow. Because we're going to do two kinds of training this year. We will teach the rules, but we're also going to teach how do bacteria grow so that you can stop that. We want to teach you the how along with what to do so that you can better understand how to get in front of any of the issues at a farmer's market. And then we will link all of these trainings, both on the farm and in the kitchen, to our website. And it's mfma.org. There's a resources tab, and then there's our library. And we'll link everything there. So that's kind of the big picture. Here's how the food safety starts at farmers markets. And now we're going to go to the food sampling part, which is what MFMA and many other groups have been working on quite a bit for the last year and a half, mainly because we found out that many of us didn't know the statutes or the rules, and therefore we're not following them, and that the statutes and the rules didn't really apply to farmers markets, and so the regulatory agencies were not enforcing them at all the same way. So they were trying to kind of shoehorn farmers markets into existing statute, and it just didn't work. And so we've been working quite diligently with many agencies to get that done. So we're just going to start at the beginning. It's been kind of fun, you guys, to do this. Back in 7th grade, I remember the cartoon about how a bill gets passed, and I realized that this year I'm living that cartoon. We actually, and it's very fascinating and it's very fun, although it took a long time and in many cases was really frustrating. So food safety is defined, more or less, because some of it isn't quite defined tightly and therefore it lends itself to interpretation. The statute, that's legislation, so there's no variance possible. Many times the statute will say, here's the category, seasonal food stand, and it requires this license, and it is a $90 fee. You can't modify that. The MDA or the MDH cannot modify that. But the rules actually can be issued variances. And those rules are set forth by the MDA and the MDH, comes through the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, with the food code. And those rules can have variances given to a vendor based on the food, the menu. So the menu drives how that's interpreted. In addition to that, both ag and health have these things called delegated authorities, which are local units of government that can impose stricter but never lesser standards. Even though this past year, that's where we found that many of the local units of government did impose less strict standards in order to help out farmers markets and vendors, but that wasn't following statute. And so that also helped. We also figured that out. And in Minnesota, just to show you how awkward it is to try to figure out food safety, in Minnesota there are 43 different government units. There's the state ag, state health. There are 7 delegated authorities on ag side and another 34 on health side. So on any given day, there are 43 government units trying to interpret food safety rules and statutes, and that's only if there's one person per agency. If there's 2 now, we have 86 people, and you can do the math. So that's where many times, as you look across the state, and we heard these complaints coming in from vendors and farmers markets, it was easy then to figure out, well, sure, there's just a lot of people interpreting some of these statutes and rules because not all the words are clearly defined. So this is the strict interpretation of current statutes and rules. If you're a vendor, if you're a farmer, gardener who you grow and produce your own food, if you're a baker who just makes baked goods and jams and jelly, or if you're a vendor who makes pickled foods under the Minnesota Pickle Bill, so those foods are a pH of 4.6 or greater, more acid, that's all protected by the Constitution, by statute and rules, that you can sell and sample your food at a farmer's market, no license, no fee. But you still have to follow but you still have to follow safe food handling practices. Yep, Lynn, Sue, you're right. pH is 4.6 or less, so that's why I said it's got to be acid. So it can't be a base, it's got to be acid. Okay, unfortunately, the statutes and rules are open for interpretation. Not all terms are defined, so the 43 units that I mentioned before try to define them. And here's some examples of why our current statutes and rules don't fit. Right now, if a commissary, which is the fancy word for a commercial kitchen, is required for all prepared foods. Well, some of our inspectors said that if you added salt, I'm a farmer, I produce a tomato, I add salt to it, that was sometimes called a prepared food. Therefore, I could not sample my tomato at a farmer's market unless I had prepared that in a commercial kitchen. SNAP Ed folks were doing food sampling at many farmers markets across the state, and according to current statute and rule, they would have had to prepare that food in a commercial kitchen. And unfortunately, commissaries, commercial kitchens, do not exist in most communities in Minnesota. The statute might just as easily have said, you need to go to Mars to prepare this food. And once we realized that that's what, so if you interpret that a farmer who wants to add salt or butter to their sweet corn, if you're going to interpret that as a prepared food, then it required a commissary, and then you went down that rabbit hole, and it stopped all of this food sampling at farmers markets. Additionally, if you're a value-added farmer, so if you're a farmer who makes cheese, so the milk comes from your farm, oops, but now you're going to put in basil. Oh, but you grow the basil on your farm, you can use the basil, you're okay. But if you made cheese and you added salt, you don't make salt on your farm, therefore that falls into a different category, and you were limited to sampling food then for 21 days in a year. You did find out the 21 days is arbitrary. In 1998, it used to be 14 days, and then in 98, it was magically changed to 21 days. But that was not based on science. We're pretty sure it was a political decision because it's not captured anywhere. So that got all of those value-added farmers that were trying to sample food at their farmers market, limiting to just 21 days. Again, a statute that doesn't fit very well. It's actually a statute that, once again, has a couple of words in there that are not defined, and so you couldn't game that statute. It says 21 days in one location. And so some inspectors said, well, a location is a farmer's market. Other inspectors said, no, a location is that stall. So all you'd have to do is move another stall 2 feet away. Oh, good to go again. So that kind of vagueness in the statutes and the rules leads to many different interpretations and a lot of frustration out there. And that was that. And that's our last point there. There's just a wide variance in how people are interpreting it. So that's our current situation. So the past year, we actually have met monthly with MDA, with MDH, outstate delegated authorities. It was great to have Minneapolis involved. It was great to have folks from Olmsted County, from St. Cloud, from Duluth. A lot of people, we pushed things to them and they gave us some information back because we really had 4 tests. We wanted to have statutes and rules that were based in food science and not politics. So like 21 days, if there wasn't a food science reason to limit food sampling 21 days, we would not consider that to be valid. And we wanted all of our statutes and rules to work equally in the Twin Cities, in Duluth, in Rochester, in Bemidji, in Grand Rapids, wherever a farmer's market was located, that rule had to apply the same to all farmers markets. And we wanted to minimize unintended consequences. And since I was fairly new with this, we did actually propose some changes to statute that were really bad ideas, which was a good thing that we had looped in all of these delegated authorities. At one point, in order to reduce the amount of many interpretations, I thought that it would be a great idea to just say no delegated authorities. That, of course, got all delegated authorities in the entire state at our committee meetings because that had some other consequences that I did not know anything about, and neither did anyone in our organization. And so we quickly decided banning delegated authorities was a really bad idea. But that was one of our tests. And so every time we came up with, can we change this word in the statute or rule, we had to make sure to reach out to other people and to make sure it didn't hurt anything later on. And then the most important test was we wanted safe food. We want to make sure we have safe food for our customers and for ourselves. So the lessons learned. We have really good people at Ag and Health. The Minneapolis Department of Health put in a lot of time. The outstate public health agencies. They're folks that are really committed to healthy food. Very good to work with. We also learned what it takes to propose a bill, to work with our state representatives and senators that really cared about their constituents and making government work with us and for us. We found out where to find online statutes, rules. There's something called the reviser. We found out how to read statutes and rules. 28A belongs to MDA and 157 belongs to MDH. We learned a lot more. And now when people bring up, that was in section 157.15 or it was in 28A, subdivision D, whatever, blah, blah. I actually know where I can find that information. And so that's going to be part of our training also because these statutes and rules affect us. And we need to make sure that we understand them as well as the regulatory authority. So we do have, Minnesota Farmers Market Association has proposed legislation. Right now it's the House file. H stands for House, F stands for file. We don't have the Senate file bill number yet. But if you go to the reviser's, Office of the Reviser statute, and you type in HF 2178 and you click the down arrow there for bills, this bill will show up and you'll be able to see all the wording on it. It does define a farmer's market. Our Minnesota Farmers Market Association's Board of Directors has worked hard at that definition, and we do not have 100% agreement on the board. It's really hard to define this and make all the farmers markets in the state of Minnesota happy. We felt it was important, though, to define it, because if we, the farmers markets, don't define it, remember those 43 agencies? They will. And they will all define that word differently. There were many things that we discussed about this definition. Some of us wanted to say, and you cannot use the word farmer's market unless you fit this definition. For instance, there's a vending machine at the Minneapolis airport that says farmer's market. Farmer's market vending machine, and in there is produce from California, Florida, Mexico, but nothing to do with a farmer's market. We have some people that said if you use this definition, we want you to, and you're not a farmer's market, we'd like to fine you $1,000, and then we could legally shut you down. But that actually would cause, as we talked with the Minnesota Department of Ag and other folks, it could lead to lawsuits. And then how would you deal with the lawsuits? Who would defend them? And would that be a good use of tax dollars to defend them? There is a USDA definition of a farmer's market, and it says pretty much what this does, but it says that 60% of all vendors at farmers markets must be farmers. And we did pilot that a little bit with our farmers markets, and we found out that it would harm many of our legacy farmers markets that have been around for decades, that they wouldn't have 60% of the vendors be farmers, gardeners, marketers, farmers. And that didn't seem to be fair then to the current farmers market atmosphere that we have going in Minnesota. So really what this says, a farmers market is a group of 3 or more people. You assemble at a defined public location for the purpose of selling directly to the consumer the products of the farm and the garden occupied and cultivated by the person selling the product. And that allows us to define farmers market, and it prevents other entities from doing so. Our proposed legislation will now allow all vendors to sample food as long as you have a hand washing stand That's a 5-gallon thermos with a flip or turn spout, not a push spout, because the water has to run through your hands. It needs to be warm water. It can never be less than 1 gallon. You have to have soap, paper towels, and then containers to catch the water in the paper towels. The thing about never less than 1 gallon of water. So there was a huge discussion about gravity. What I'm describing here is a gravity hand washing and pressure. Well, it was very hard to really force people to define what pressure meant, how much pressure. If we are going to mandate, put into statute or rule, that all vendors at farmers markets have pressure washing, and our farmers markets are in parking lots and parks that do not have electricity, how would that work? So to mandate something that is not physically possible is bad public policy. That was our argument. And besides that, when you go down that rabbit hole of trying to figure out what pressure meant, no one could really define that. In fact, some of the vendors selling pressure washing hand stations could not define how much pressure they had in that pressure washing hand stand. And then some of our outstate delegated authorities reminded us that many of the towns in the state of Minnesota, their entire city water is gravity fed. That's what you call the water tanks above each of the towns. That's all gravity fed. So that's when Dan Huff from the Minneapolis Department of Health did a little bit of research. And really, if you have 30 PSI and 30 PSI pounds per square inch, you could have 30 PSI if you have a thermos that has that nice half-inch orifice, and you keep at least 1 gallon of water. If you go less than 1 gallon of water, you will run into less than 30 PSI. And so this was a huge issue for us. I know it sounds silly and simple, right? But it was huge for us to get this point, that we can do this. If you just have a hand washing station, which is nothing more than 5 gallons of water, so you're going to start your day off with 5 gallons and then monitor it. And if it takes you, you're going to run your water all the way down to nothing in that thermos and washing your hands during your farmer's market, and get tools that are cheap. And in fact, we've got a grant that we're going to try to buy some of these for people, and so we can get them out there. Okay, so that's the big deal about hand washing, gravity hand washing stations. We don't need pressure washing. That's what this proposal says. Plastic gloves on your hands. Your samples need to be free. They need to be single serve, up to 3 ounces. And single serve means use a toothpick or plastic or paper cups. The theory there is that when I reach down and pick up a apple, my fat little fingers cannot touch another piece of apple that someone else is going to eat. So it's all single serve, up to 3 ounces. You do need to prepare it at your farmer's market. And we're going to ask that you submit a safe food sampling plan. This actually was piloted last year by the Grand Rapids Farmers Market and worked fairly well. And it reassured the Department of Health that it would be, as long as they could see what we were trying to sample, then we could get by with these lesser standards. Susan, does there have to be 1 hand washing stand per vendor or 1 per market? So the rule, not statute, but the rule says you have to wash your hands before you put on your plastic gloves. And so our compromise with the Department of Health and the Department of Ag is that if a bunch of tents kind of are situated together, they could have 1 thermos, as long as 1 thermos would adequately allow you for those. Let's say that 4 tents are situated together, so you've got 1 common corner between the 4 tents. You could have 1 hand washing stand. And as long as you could keep at least 1 gallon of water in there. So between the 4 of you, you would only use up 4 gallons of that water during your farmer's market. So 1 per market will not work, because if you think about that, at my market, we would have it there, but no one would use it. Or at least only the vendor closest to that would use it. The rest of us probably wouldn't get down there to wash our hands. So the key is you want clean hands. You want clean hands, you want clean hands. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. So you need to have your hand washing stand close to the vendors. So the health, we call them H and A for health and ag. They did not, we're not committed. You wouldn't need to have one every single tent. That might be overkill. You could do it in common corners to tents, but definitely more than just one per one big market. All right, that was a good question. Thanks for asking that, because that has come up in a number of other presentations. Our proposed legislation now allows educational groups to come back and do food demos and sample that food, as long as same requirements for vendors. You have to have your hand washing station, you have to have plastic gloves, it's got to be free, single serve 3-ounce food samples, it has to be prepared at the farmer's market, and you have to submit a safe food sampling plan. And so one of the keys for that safe food sampling plan, which we do have now on MSMA's website, is a sample of it. It's pretty straightforward. You just fill it out and you'll submit it. We actually put the link in there where you can find your inspector. And so what will happen there is, if I'm a farmer and I say, I'm going to sample my tomatoes, and I'm going to cut up some tomatoes and cut up some cucumbers, and I'm going to dribble balsamic vinegar on it with a little bit of salt. Will that be okay? And you're going to get thumbs up. But Kathy Zeman, with brother Nick, remember the chickens on the front porch? We sell eggs. So if I wanted to cook up those eggs and make them into egg salad and serve them at a farmer's market with chips, then probably, more than likely, absolutely, MDH would come back and say, yeah, that's actually prepared food, and you will need to prepare that in a commercial kitchen, and you'll need to have NSF and other things. So that allows MDH to step in when we are going to serve a food that is on that potentially hazardous list. And so maybe I don't sample, deviled eggs, because I don't sell deviled eggs, do I? I sell eggs. And so that's the difference. I sell eggs. Deviled eggs or egg salad is a prepared food, so I cross the line. And as long as I submit that plan, then I help the two agencies help me figure out that that's not going to work. Our new legislation, the very last paragraph in the legislation touches section 157. And that allows farmers who have value-added products to sample food all year long, not just in the 21 days in the one location. So our cheese vendors and our meat vendors and anybody else who does that value-added product, they will be allowed to do that. Going into section 157, that's a tough section. The way that is written is very complex, and it crosses over onto so many other words and other categories that one of the ladies at the Department of Health said they would just really like to throw out that entire thing and rewrite it, because it's kind of piecemeal together. Patchwork makes it really awkward. So at least if we change this one word that says, or you can do it for 21 days as long as you get approval, so that'll help out those people. Chris, I'm going to ask this, what about handing out samples of jams, jelly, salsas, sure, you can do that. That's not a problem. You were always good on that in dehydrated foods. You can hand out samples of jams, jellies, salsas, and dehydrated foods. Again, you just have to follow those safe food sampling ideas. You have to have your hand washing stand. So you'll even be able to do that on a cracker. Okay, you'll be able to take a knife and put your jam on a little cracker, because you've got your plastic gloves on, and you're going to put it down in a little cup, so that they can take that little cup and eat it. And part of our training with Suzanne Dreesen, as we go around the state, so we're going to try to do these trainings online or in your neighborhood or whatever makes it easy for all of the farmers markets, so that we'll actually be able to help you find good sources. So if there's a good deal on getting 1 million little 3-ounce paper cups or plastic cups, we're going to help do that, or toothpicks or whatever that is. We're going to try to find it in everybody's neighborhood so that we can make this easy, because MDH, the Department of Health and the Department of Ag really did work hard with us to make these revisions happen. And so now we are committed, Minnesota Farmers Market is committed to doing the training and making sure that we're all following it, because then it will be safe and it will be easy to do. Oh, wait, Kim Swanson, I'm so glad you asked that question. If we sample fresh salsa, does it have to be prepared at the farmer's market? Well, first of all, fresh salsa does not fit under the pickle bill. The pickle bill only allows you to make pickled salsa with your 4.6, 4.5, 4.4, 4.3 pH. So fresh salsa, if you're going to sell it, actually has to be made with a license and in a commercial kitchen. Could you, so if you were saying, but I sell the tomatoes, I sell peppers, I sell onion, I sell the garlic, and I want to chop that up at the farmer's market and then serve it in little cups on a cracker, yes, you could do that as long as you submitted your plan to your local inspector. So I hope that answers your question. So fresh salsa itself has to be made, if you're selling it, has to be made in a commercial kitchen with a license, one of the various licenses. The pickled salsa with that 4.6 or lower, then you can sell that legally in Minnesota with the pickle bill. And by the way, not all states have a pickle bill. We're very fortunate that we have a Minnesota pickle bill. It wasn't popular with everybody, but we did get it through. So I talked about our proposed legislation, folks. We do need your help. If you can, find out who your state representative and your state senator are and ask them to please support the Minnesota Farmers Market Bill. In the House, it's called House File 2178. It actually went through, I'm fairly certain it went through the Minnesota Department of Ag with their bill, and so we'll have some testifying to do at the state in the next few weeks. And if any of you are available to help us ask our state ag committee and our state legislatures to pass this bill, that would be great. Email me, because this bill finally allows us to do safe food sampling at farmers market. Wait, Linda, you have a question here. Opening a jar that's for sale cannot be sampled? Nope, it can be sampled. Yes, it can. Opening a jar of what? So if you have a jar of jam, you could open a jar of jam and you can take that out with a knife or individual, little wooden things, little spoons, and that can be sampled. That's fine. The part about fresh salsa, though, the word fresh is what kicks you into a prepared food category, and that requires a license. All right. So we will need your help to get this passed. If this doesn't pass this year, it gets really hard because now everyone knows that what we've been doing at farmers markets has probably not been following statute. And that's a hard word, right? Because statute is the law. So if I always say we're not in compliance, but really that's just a nice way of saying we're illegal. And most of us, including, me, I look in the mirror every day, I'm like, oh, we sampled that incorrectly. That's not the way we were supposed to do it. So we've all been doing it. Many of our regulatory authorities have okayed things that we weren't supposed to do, but now we all know about it. And so if this does not pass, now we're kind of stuck because we all know we've been doing it wrong, and you can't really just choose to not follow the law. Especially the regulatory authorities will have a hard time with that. So we do ask your help. If you can help us get that done, that'd be great. And once this gets passed, we're just committed to doing training, so that everybody is trained, because this now makes our food sampling at farmers markets pretty darn easy to do and safe. So you'll never have to file a product liability insurance claim, and you'll never have to serve food that's not safe for your neighbors. So if you want to get on our email list to receive all the notifications on this or anything else with farmers markets, email me at info@mfma.org. Come to our spring conference on March 20th if at all possible. That's the end of the slides, guys. My favorite picture of my brother Tony there in the middle and his 5 sons as they ride off into the sunset. However, I would like to follow up with this presentation. If you could, let me know 5 things that you learned today, and then list a couple of things that you wanted to learn that I did not cover. And if you wanted, at this point, if you wanted to type any questions in on that sidebar, go ahead. I hope I've answered between Kim's question about the fresh salsa and Linda's about opening a jar. I hope everybody has it. Ooh, so you guys, would Becky and Michael type in that link, how you can find your reps? Do you all see that link? I'm hoping we all see the same link. And I do apologize. Cecilia Coulter is on our board. She's from Chicago City Farmers Market, has done phenomenal work, and she actually started us down this path of getting this legislation done. She reached out to her state representative, Bob Barrett, and he's the state rep who has authored this bill along with Carolyn Lane, so that she's got a Republican and a Democrat from her area in the House taking care of this for us, and hopefully Senator Lori is going to pick it up on the Senate side. But I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't really know who my state reps are. And that's kind of the weird part. So I had to go find my Vicki Jensen and my Patty Fritz and introduce myself and tell them that I need this done. And I've never done it before. So it's important, if you can, to figure out who your reps are. Okay, Jenny's got a question. Jenny, I think you're from Duluth. Do you know if we can sell a kefir, which is not a sell product if you do not, I heard. So kefir is going to be a fermented product. It's milk that you put the culture in. And that will be able, and that, you have to actually make that in the commercial kitchen, and actually, that's actually going to transfer over into the dairy food division. So you can't make that in your kitchen, and you cannot sell that at the farmer's market. That is not, you can make it if you do it, you can sell it at farmer's market, but it has to be the commercial license and numerous, you're actually going to have 2 or 3 licenses there and fees. Well, kefir wouldn't have to be a raw milk. You could make kefir with pasteurized milk, but it really doesn't matter, you guys. That in particular needs a license and fees. List some other things you might be interested in selling that I can tell you right now whether it would need a license or a fee. During week 8, more information about commercial kitchens you can join on March 11th. We did have a community commercial kitchen in Northfield that was available. We could rent it for $15 an hour. The kitchen itself was legal, but then any of us vendors who wanted to use it had to be licensed and pay the fee. So first the kitchen itself, and then you have to have a license and fee. All right, Becky and Michael want to know what about dried salsa mixture? Requires a license and a fee because you're processing food. What about homemade breads and rolls for sampling? No, you can make homemade breads and rolls in your kitchen safely. I mean, follow safe food handling. So I always tell people, think about your kitchen. If in your kitchen or in your house you've got a dog or a cat, you know what? You're going to have to clean and vacuum and sanitize. And you're going to have to sanitize your kitchen, but you can make homemade breads or rolls for sampling. Yes, you can make homemade breads and rolls. You can make pumpkin bread, banana bread, zucchini bread, any of that. When you kind of cross over is if we have a vendor that likes to make homemade or artisan breads, and they make little baguettes, and they put spinach and feta and dehydrated tomatoes on it. And we actually did have one inspector say that, yes, they could do that in their home kitchen, but every other inspector said no. So as we go forward, part of why we wanted this legislation is that it now creates a level playing field for all of us in the state of Minnesota equally. And now we can begin to compare answers and stories so that we can help build in some consistencies in the interpretation of the rules and the statutes. So what Minnesota Farmers Market has worked with MDA and MDH, we will become the advocates for you. So let's say that Andy and Noel want to sell XYZ. And you get an answer from your inspector that you're not really sure is right, and you've done a little bit of research, and it looks to you like this would work, and you're not sure you've got the right answer. You can come to the Minnesota Farmers Market Association. You're going to email info@msma.org, and you are going to say, "Hey, we're not sure about this," and we'll do your advocacy work. We'll follow up with H&A and make sure that all of the inspectors throughout the state are giving the same answer. So we're prepared to do that advocacy work. Okay, so I'm kind of catching dry salsa mixture. Yeah, dry salsa mixture. You're talking about mixing herbs, spices, and herbs. It's still going to require a license. Raw kimchi. Raw kimchi is that a fermented? You're going to can it. It's a canned fermented product. Are you canning that? Raw sounds to me like it's raw, so that would not work. That's not going to fit under the pickle bill. However, didn't Deb just talk about that? I think last week's session on the pickle bill. Maybe we go back to Deb and have Deb weigh in on that also. Okay, anything else? Ice rubs, things that requires a license and a fee. A red wine vinegar made from local red wine. Wow, that one, I'm gonna hang on to that one, Becky and Michael. I'm gonna ask the folks at MDH on that one for sure. I would tell you on that one that we've had inconsistent rulings because I know of a honey vinegar that's been used. So the other thing I'm doing is creating, actually Jane Jewett, Jane's on this, she's from Grand Rapids, so Jane's also helping with this. We're just capturing as we get rulings from the Department of Health and Department of Ag, so we can begin comparing the answers, and then we can help build this consistency between us, the people who are in the business, and the H and the Ag, the people that are in the regulatory, trying to keep all of us safe. So I'm going to ask about the red wine vinegar made from the local red wine. And what I will do is shoot that answer back to Linda. And then Linda will have your information and she can shoot it back to you. So sometimes it's kind of hard to ask these questions, right? Because you're afraid you're going to get told no. That's what I tell the Department of Ag and Health. I don't really want to ask these questions because they're going to tell me I can't do it. And really, I want to ask the questions so that we can do it safely. So you can, this is okay. I'll ask some of these questions. I'll get it back to Linda and she can post them and then we won't have to worry about it. Raising your hand too high so you can get the right answer. And I would definitely go back to Deb, Deb's resources on that pickle bill. She does a good job with that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll add barbecue sauce to the list. So Chris Carlson. Can we sample safely this year with this bill not being passed yet? Yes, you can. I would do exactly what we proposed. The only thing, if you are a farmer and you wanted to add chopping up your tomato, your cucumber, your onion, and dribbling balsamic vinegar, the statute says no, you can't do that unless you prepared that in a commissary and you have a license. So if your farm, this is supposed to be the short session this year, supposed to be the unsession. That's why we kind of like putting our bill forward this year because it makes government work better for the people. So kind of the ungovernment way to do it. So in most farmers markets don't start, until April, May, June, although many of them are going year round. But I'll tell you, the state, if this does not pass, we have to revert back to our current state statute, and you can safely sample a lot of things, except not anything that you're going to cut up. Anytime you're beginning to cut up and add something to the food, you're going to run into trouble. Linda asked, have we heard any opposition to this bill? No, we've worked, for a year and a half with everybody. There are groups out there that always look at farmers markets and a little bit apprehensively as if we could potentially be a threat. So there is the Minnesota Grocers Association and there's the restaurant group that sometimes looks askance at farmers markets. But we actually have them in. They both come to a couple of our meetings and they were pretty much okay with what we were promoting. So right now we don't see any public opposition to it, but we really do need everybody to contact their state reps and their state senators to support this bill. All right, Kim, we make a salsa kit made with some tomatoes and we include a spice. Is this okay? That's an example of fresh salsa. What? We don't sell the prepared for fresh salsa. So you make a salsa kit. What do you, Kim, talk to me more. Talk to me more about that salsa kit. So do you just put like in a basket or a bag? You put The tomatoes, the onions, the peppers, the garlic, cilantro. You're not cutting anything up in there. You include a prepackaged spice. You're not preparing that spice. You're including a prepackaged spice and lemon juice. Lemon juice. You open the jar of lemon juice and you're putting it in a snack bag. You could. That's why you sample that fresh salsa. Yeah, you're not cutting anything. Where to go? Kim, I would tell you that what you're doing, you don't sell. What you're doing in our proposed legislation. Yes, you are legal. Under our current legislation, no, you're not legal. But you're going to join most of us who aren't legal. So, yeah. Does that make sense to you? And Linda just posted a link to the bill. So, and Kim's got a good question there. We have other folks. So here's the other thing that you might as well, there's other things coming down on the direct market side. We've got a bunch of CSAs out there. I'm going to look at the time. We have 8 minutes left. So, Linda, yell at me if I need to stop talking. There are a bunch of CSAs, community supported ag, out there that are commingling food from different farms. And according to current statute, they would need a different license to do that. And so as we've had these discussions in these groups, we're going to look at more laws out there that really don't fit a vibrant local food business. So, we've got the bakers that are saying, I can make and bake these things at a farmer's market, but during the week, I can't make and bake these things and sell them from my home. So that's getting looked at. And so we'll look at other statutes that don't fit, because we really do want a very vibrant local food market in Minnesota. And so as you hear these things, make sure you email us, because that way we'll be able to work with our group. On this, on our group here is Jane Jewett, and Jane also sits on NISA, Minnesota Institute for Sustainable Ag, and both of us sit on this thing called the Local Food Advisory Committee, and it gathers together a whole bunch of groups and people, and that's what we're looking at, is all the local food statutes that are either helping us or harming us, and we'll try to get a handle on that. So don't be afraid to email us with your questions, and we'll try to get answers to them. Look at Jane. If you commingle fresh produce only, it's a produce handler's license. If you commingle eggs and meat, then someone would need a food handler's license. So that's on that CSA side. And of course, we have CSAs now dropping off at farmers markets. So we'll just kind of keep a handle on it. Okay, guys, I hope I answered what you needed to get answered tonight. Don't be afraid to email me if you need more information, okay?